Nana, please come to my graduation. I know it's been 9 years, but I need you to be there. Zoe's voice trembled on the other end of the phone, and I felt the air grow thick in my office on the 42nd floor. 9 years. 9 years since my own children slammed the door in my face and told me I was no longer welcome in their lives. Hook, what if the mother they rejected built a secret empire worth millions? Stay with real life story to uncover the shocking truth. I stayed silent, looking out the glass window that overlooked the entire city of Atlanta. From this height, I could see 3 of my hotels, their signs glowing in the afternoon sun. Ryland Resorts, etched in gold letters that no one in my family knew existed. No one except Zoe. Nana, are you still there? Her voice pulled me back to the present. Zoe was the only one who never abandoned me. The only one who kept calling, writing, and visiting in secret all these years. While her parents treated me like a useless, outdated old woman, she saw me for who I truly was. I'm here, my love, I answered, feeling emotion swell in my throat. But you know your parents. I couldn't finish the sentence. The scars from 9 years ago were still there, healed, but sensitive to the touch. They don't know, Zoe interrupted. It's my personal invitation. I have the right to invite anyone I want. Besides, Mom and Dad have no idea who you really are now. They think you're still the same woman they threw out of the house. I closed my eyes and remembered that day. Tia yelling that I was a burden, that my ideas were antiquated, that I didn't understand the modern world. Marcus nodding from the couch, spineless as always, incapable of defending his own mother. You'd be better off moving into an assisted living facility, Mama. You'll be better off there, my own daughter had told me, as if I were an object that had outlived its usefulness. I got up from my Italian leather chair and walked toward the window. The city stretched out beneath my feet like a chessboard, where I had learned to make the right moves. Every building, every street, every light flickering on at dusk, reminded me of the road I had traveled alone. Zoe, 9 years have passed. Maybe it's better if things stay as they are, I whispered, even though a part of me was dying to see her walk toward that diploma that I had secretly paid for. Hook, how did a 73-year-old woman turn betrayal into billions? Keep listening to this real-life story for the incredible twist. Nana, you paid for my degree. You sent me money every month when they thought I had a scholarship. You listened to me cry on the phone when I felt lonely. You deserve to be in the front row watching me graduate with my medical degree. Her voice cracked a little. Please, I need you to be there. I need you to see what we accomplished together. I looked over at my desk where I kept a framed photo of Zoe in her white hospital coat from her residency. Beside it was a local newspaper featuring my photo in the business section. Aisha Ryland, the entrepreneur who revolutionized luxury hospitality in the region. If my children knew that the woman they considered finished now had a net worth of several $1,000,000, employed more than 500 people, and had built an empire from scratch after they discarded me. I touched the photo frame. Zoe had the same eyes I had at her age. That same determination that my own children never valued. She had inherited my strength, my vision, my ability to build something great from nothing. Where is the ceremony? I asked, and I could hear her sigh of relief. At the university auditorium this Saturday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Nana. Everyone will be there. All the relatives, she paused, including Mom and Dad. I felt a knot in my stomach. 9 years without seeing them. 9 years wondering if they ever thought of me, if they ever regretted treating me like trash. 9 years building a new life, a new identity, a success they could never imagine. All right, I finally said, I'll be there. Seriously? Zoe sounded incredulous. Seriously? But Zoe, I want you to know something. I'm not the same woman they knew 9 years ago. I've changed. I've grown. I built something they can't even imagine. I know, Nana. I always knew. That's why I need you to come so they can see who you really are. After hanging up, I stared at the city stretching beneath my feet. The phone rested in my hand, a familiar weight. Tomorrow, I would call my assistant to prepare everything. The perfect suit, the right car, the presents a woman like me deserved. Tia and Marcus were about to discover they had gravely underestimated their mother. I smiled for the first time in months. After 9 years, it was time they knew the truth. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed on the terrace of my penthouse, wrapped in a cashmere throw, remembering how I had gotten here. The city lights shimmered below. But my mind traveled back 9 years to that small house where I thought I would die of sadness. Tia was only about 35 when she told me she didn't need me anymore. Marcus, 2 years younger, was always her shadow. I remember wearing my navy blue dress that day, the one I used for important meetings at the job I had just quit to care for Zoe when she was a baby. "Mama, honestly, you just don't know anything about the modern world anymore," Tia had told me while clearing the table after lunch. "Your advice is useless. Your ideas are behind the times. We need space to grow as a family." I had left my career as a business administrator to help them with Zoe. I had sold my small condo to give them the down payment for their house. I had spent my savings on Marcus' college tuition, on Tia's whims, on everything they had asked for over the years. "But I helped you with everything," I had told them that morning, my voice breaking. "My job I quit for you. I sold everything I had so you could have this house." Marcus sighed from the couch without even looking at me. "Mama, that was your decision. We never asked you to do all that." It was a painful lie. I remembered perfectly when Tia came home crying because they couldn't pay the mortgage. I remembered when Marcus begged me to help him with college because he had failed classes and lost his scholarship. I remembered every tear, every plea, every time they told me I was the best mother in the world. "Besides," Tia continued, "you're old now. You're 73. You should be thinking about resting, not sticking your nose in our lives." 73 years old. As if I were a helpless elderly woman. As if my mind had stopped working the day I turned 70. As if my years of experience, wisdom, and sacrifice were worth nothing. "But Zoe," I whispered, thinking of my 13-year-old granddaughter who was at school. "She needs me. I watch her every afternoon." "We already got a babysitter," Marcus said without looking up from his phone. "Someone younger, more up-to-date, someone who understands technology and can help her with homework." More up-to-date. That word hurt more than any shout. I who had managed the finances of a major corporation for 20 years. I who had raised 2 children alone after their father abandoned us. I who had learned to use computers, the internet, and smartphones just to stay connected with them. "Mama, don't take it the wrong way." Tia came closer and placed a hand on my shoulder with that fake smile she used when she wanted something. "We just need our space." "You need your space, too. You could travel, meet people your age, do things you actually enjoy." Do things I actually enjoyed. What I truly enjoyed was watching them grow, caring for Zoe, feeling useful, having a family that loved me. But apparently that was no longer enough. "So what do you want me to do?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Well," Marcus finally sat up. "We've been looking at some assisted living facilities. There are some really nice ones with activities, people your age. You could be happy there." Assisted living facilities. They wanted to get rid of me, send me somewhere where I wouldn't bother them, where they could pretend they were still the perfect children everyone believed them to be. "And what if I don't want to go to an assisted living facility?" I asked, feeling the rage begin to replace the sadness. "Mama, don't be difficult," Tia sighed. "Look, we can help you with the expenses for the first few months, but after that, you'll have to manage on your Social Security check." My Social Security check, $600 a month, that wasn't even enough to rent a decent room. They knew it. They knew I had spent everything on them, that I had no savings, that my only security was them. "But I have nowhere to go," I whispered. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly old, truly useless, truly finished. "Well," Marcus shrugged, "you have to find something. We can't support you forever." They couldn't support me after I had supported them their entire lives, after sacrificing my future for theirs. After believing that a mother's love was something valued, respected, and returned. That night, 9 years ago, I left their house with a small suitcase and a broken heart. I didn't know that rupture would be the best gift they had ever given me. Now, looking at the city lights from my terrace, I smiled. Tomorrow, they would see what I had done with that pension they were so worried about. The day I left their house, I cried for 3 hours straight on a park bench. I was 73 years old, had $600 in my pocket, and a suitcase with 4 old dresses. People walked by and looked away as if old age were contagious, as if my pain was an uncomfortable sight they preferred not to see. It was there, sitting on that splintered wooden bench, that I made the decision that would change my life forever. Aisha, I told myself out loud, not caring if people thought I was crazy. Either you die here of sadness or you show them what you're made of. I remembered something I had learned in my years of work. There was always money for those who knew how to look for it. There were always opportunities for those who kept their eyes open. My children believed that because I was old, I was useless. But I knew something they didn't. Experience doesn't retire. The next day, with my last bit of cash, I bought a newspaper and looked for work. Not just any job. I looked for something where my experience was worth more than my age. I found a small ad in the employment section. Experienced administrator sought for small family run-in, urgent. The inn was a disaster. It had 15 rooms, half of them out of service, and its owners, an elderly couple older than me, were desperate to sell. Mr. Franklin Hayes was 80 years old, and his wife, Mrs. Betty Hayes, had lost her sight due to diabetes. They couldn't manage the business anymore. "Ma'am," Mr. Hayes said when he saw me arrive. "We need someone who understands numbers, who knows administration, but we can't pay much salary." "How much do you need for the inn?" I asked directly. He was silent for a moment. "Well, we've appraised it at $50,000, but we're willing to negotiate." "Why do you ask?" "Because I have a better proposal," I said, feeling the adrenaline rush through my veins. "I'll manage the inn, get it running, and in exchange, I'll take 30% of the profits. When the inn is doing well, you give me the option to buy it outright." Mr. Hayes looked at me as if I had lost my mind. "Ma'am, you don't understand. This inn is losing money. There are no profits to share." "Let me work for 3 months, I insisted. "If I don't make the inn profitable, I leave without charging a dime. But if I succeed, we have a deal." That night, I slept in one of the inn's rooms on a bed that smelled of dampness and with the sound of broken pipes. My children thought I was finished, a burden, that I didn't understand the modern world. I was going to show them how wrong they were. The first month was the hardest of my life. I worked from 5 o'clock in the morning until 11 at night. I cleaned rooms, fixed what I could. I talked to suppliers, designed a new reservation system. I learned to use the internet not just for browsing, but to create a website, manage social media, and understand the tourism market. Modern world, huh? I'd mutter to myself as I learned to use computer programs my children didn't even know. We'll see who's outdated. The second month, the first guests started arriving. I had discovered that our location was perfect for travelers who wanted something intimate and homey, far from the big, impersonal hotels. I hired 2 young women from the neighborhood to help me with cleaning and taught them everything I knew about customer service. "Miss Aisha, Maria," one of the girls would say, "you should have children taking care of you. I don't understand why you're here working so hard." "My children are busy with their own lives," I would answer, swallowing the truth. Besides, a woman is not defined by what others do for her, but by what she does for herself. By the 3rd month, the inn was completely full. The online reviews were excellent. Mr. Hayes couldn't believe the numbers. "Miss Aisha," he told me, his eyes bright, "you've worked a miracle. This inn hasn't seen this many guests in 20 years. "This is just the beginning," I replied. "Now we need to expand." That's when I proposed my real plan. With the inn's profits, we could buy the building next door that was for sale. We could expand to 30 rooms, add a restaurant, and create a complete guest experience. But that requires a large investment, Mr. Hayes said. We'd need a bank loan. Let me talk to the bank, I told him. I have some contacts from my working years. I lied. I didn't have contacts, but I had something better. I had numbers that spoke for themselves. I had a solid business plan. I had the experience of managing large budgets for 20 years. The bank manager received me condescendingly. Ma'am, at your age, such a large loan is very risky. We would need significant collateral. Look at these numbers, I said, placing the 3 months of reports on his desk. Look at the projections. Look at the customer reviews. This business isn't a risk. It's an opportunity. I got the loan. $50,000 that my children would never have believed I could secure. Money they would never have trusted in my hands. 6 months later, we had 30 rooms operating. A year later, we bought a third building. 2 years later, we had our first branch in another city. Throughout all that time, Zoe would call me in secret. Nana, how are you? Mom says you're living in a retirement home. I'm doing well, my love, I would tell her without sharing the full truth. I'm learning new things, meeting new people. I'm fine. I never lied to her. But I didn't tell her that her outdated grandmother was building an empire. 3 years after they kicked me out of their house, I already had 5 hotels operating in 3 different cities. Ryland resorts had become synonymous with elegance and family warmth across the region. But money and success weren't what filled me with the most pride. It was the transformation I had undergone internally. Every morning I woke up at 5:30, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I dressed in elegant suits that I bought with my own money. I ate breakfast, savoring gourmet coffee and porcelain cups I had personally chosen for each of my hotels. I checked occupancy reports, spoke with my managers, and made decisions that affected hundreds of employees. Good morning, Miss Ryland. Evan, my personal assistant, greeted me every morning when I arrived at the central office. You have a meeting with the Miami investors at 10 o'clock, lunch with the mayor at 12 o'clock, and the video conference with the Charleston team at 3. Charleston, my 6th hotel, the most ambitious yet, a restored colonial building in the historic center that would become the flagship of my chain. When I signed the purchase contract, I remembered Marcus's words. Mama, at your age, you should be thinking about resting. Resting. While he was still surviving on temporary jobs and Tia was struggling to keep her office job, I was expanding my business regionally. While they argued over money to pay the bills, I had donated $50,000 to a local orphanage the month before. Miss Ryland, the orphanage director, Dr. Evelyn Reed, had told me with tears in her eyes, this donation will allow us to completely renovate the education area. The children will have access to new computers, updated books, materials we never could have afforded. Children are the future, I replied, thinking of Zoe. Investing in them is always the best decision. But there was more than money in my transformation. It was confidence, the feeling that every morning I was building something bigger than myself. It was the satisfaction of seeing my employees grow professionally, seeing the families who worked with me improve their lives thanks to the well-paid jobs I offered. Ms. Aisha, Maria, the girl I hired at my first inn and who is now a regional manager, had told me, "You changed my life." Thanks to this job, I was able to study hotel management at night. Now I have my own apartment. I can help my family. I have a future. You changed your own life, I replied. I just gave you the opportunity. You did the hard work. But at night when I was alone in my penthouse, I sometimes thought of them. Tia, Marcus, and especially Zoe. My granddaughter was now 16, and according to our secret conversations, she was studying hard to get into medical school. Nana, I dream of being a doctor, she had told me on our last call. But Mom says it's too expensive. That maybe I should study something more practical. What does your heart say, my love? I asked. My heart says medicine. I want to help people. I want to do something important with my life. Then study medicine, I told her firmly. The money for college is always found when there is true vocation. I didn't tell her that I had already set aside $100,000 for her studies. I didn't tell her that I had contacted the best medical schools in the country. I didn't tell her that her future was secured, regardless of what her parents said. Because Zoe was different. Zoe saw me for what I was, an intelligent, capable woman full of dreams and plans, not a useless old woman who needed to be discarded. Nana, she had asked me once, why do Mom and Dad never talk about you? When I ask, they change the subject. Sometimes families get complicated, my love, I replied. But you and I know who we are. That's what matters. One afternoon, while reviewing expansion plans for the New Orleans hotel, I received an unexpected call. It was a number I didn't recognize, but when I answered, I heard a familiar voice. Miss Ryland, this is Sterling Vance from the Central Bank. We have a very interesting business proposal for you. Sterling Vance was one of the vice presidents of the region's most important bank. We had met at a few business gatherings, but had never spoken directly. The bank is interested in financing your national expansion, he continued. We have been following the growth of Ryland Resorts and we believe it has the potential to become a significant regional chain. We are talking about a line of credit of $5 million. $5 million. My children had believed that $600 a month in Social Security was all I could handle. Now a bank was offering me $5 million to expand my business. I'm interested, I replied with the composure I had learned over these years of business. Let's schedule a meeting to discuss the terms. After hanging up, I looked out my office window. Down on the street, I saw an older woman carrying grocery bags, walking slowly, ignored by everyone who passed her. 4 years ago, that could have been me. Invisible, discarded, considered a nuisance by her own children. Now I was a respected businesswoman, a responsible employer, a successful investor. I had built something that would last, something that had value, something that proved that age was not a limit but an advantage. And most importantly, I had learned to value myself without needing anyone else's approval. 5 years after being kicked out of my children's house, Ryland Resorts was a reality that surpassed my most ambitious dreams. I had 12 operating hotels, more than 800 employees, and had just been named Entrepreneur of the Year by the Regional Chamber of Commerce. But that recognition came with something I didn't expect. The first time my children found out about my real existence. Aisha Ryland, Tia had asked Zoe over the phone, unaware that my granddaughter had the speakerphone activated, and I could hear every word from my office. Could that be the same Aisha Ryland who was in the paper as a successful entrepreneur? I don't know, Mom, Zoe had replied with a naturalness that filled me with pride. There are lots of people with that name, but it says she's 78. And the last name, Zoe. Do you think it could be your Nana? My granddaughter was silent for a few seconds. I could imagine her face trying to decide what to say. We had agreed to keep our contact a secret, but we had never discussed what would happen if her parents started asking direct questions. Mom, Nana's in a retirement home, Zoe finally said. How could she be an entrepreneur? Tia was quiet, but I could feel her doubt through the phone. Over the next few days, Zoe told me her mother had been strangely nervous, asking questions about where I lived, exactly what I did, and if anyone had heard from me. I think they suspect something, Nana, Zoe told me during one of our evening calls. Mom's been asking a lot about you. She even told Dad they should visit you. Visit me? I couldn't help but laugh after 5 years of giving me the silent treatment. It's because you were in the business magazine again, Zoe continued. This time with a photo of you at the New Orleans hotel inauguration. Mom saw it at the dentist's office and nearly fainted. The photo. I remembered that session perfectly. I had hired a professional photographer for the new hotel's advertising campaign. The image showed me elegant in a cream-colored tailored suit, cutting the ribbon in front of a beautiful colonial building, surrounded by local officials and important business owners. My silver hair perfectly styled, my posture erect, my smile self-assured, nothing like the broken woman who had left their house 5 years earlier. Zoe, I said carefully, what do you want me to do if they decide to look for me? I don't know, Nana. Part of me wants them to know the truth, to know how wrong they were, but another part of me is afraid. They only want to get close now because you have money. Zoe was right to worry. 2 weeks after that conversation, I received the first call from Marcus in 5 years. Mama. His voice sounded uncertain, as if he wasn't completely convinced it was me. It's Marcus. I stayed silent for several seconds, feeling my heart pound. I was in my office reviewing contracts for the opening of Hotel Number 13 when my personal phone rang. I never expected to hear that voice. Marcus, I finally said, keeping my tone neutral. How did you get this number? Well, Zoe gave it to us. Mama, we need to talk. We found out some things. Some things about you that we don't understand. What kind of things? I asked, though I knew exactly what he was referring to. Mama, is it true you have hotels? That you're a business owner? His voice sounded incredulous, as if he were asking if I had gone to the moon. Marcus, why are you interested in knowing now? Why? Because we don't understand how it's possible. When you left home, you only had your social security check. You had no money, no job. You had nothing. I had nothing. Those words hurt more than I wanted to admit. To them, I had nothing because they valued nothing about me. My experience, my intelligence, my capacity for work, my determination. None of it had counted. Marcus, I said with a calm I had acquired in years of tough negotiations. Why are you really calling me? We want to see you, Mama. We want to talk to you. We want to understand what happened. What happened? The rage I had buried for 5 years began to rise like lava. You really want me to tell you what happened? Mama, please. We know things didn't end well between us, but you're our mother. We're family. Family? That word they had trampled. When they pushed me out of their lives. That word they had ignored when they treated me like trash. That word they now wanted to use as an excuse to get close to my success. Marcus, 5 years have passed. 5 years where you didn't care about me. 5 years where you didn't ask if I was dead or alive. And now suddenly I'm family. Mama. 5 years, I interrupted him. 5 years building something from nothing while you lived your lives as if I didn't exist. And now, because you saw a photo in a magazine, you remember you have a mother. Mama, it's not like that. We always thought about you. Really? Then why didn't you call? Why didn't you look for me? Why did you let me disappear from your lives without a single regret? Marcus was silent. Marcus, if you want to talk, it will be on my terms. Come to my office tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. The address is 450 Peachtree Street, 42nd floor. Your office? Yes, my office. The headquarters of Ryland Resorts. I hung up without waiting for an answer. For the first time in 5 years, I felt I had the control. For the first time, I was the one setting the rules. The next morning, Marcus and Tia arrived at my office exactly at 10 o'clock. I watched them from my desk through the glass window. They looked nervous, out of place among the modern decor and my impeccably dressed employees. When they entered, I didn't get up to greet them. I simply gestured for them to sit in the chairs in front of my desk. Mama, Tia began, her voice trembling. We didn't know. We had no idea. No idea about what? I asked calmly. About all this, Marcus gestured around. About your hotels, your business, your success. And why would you know? I replied. You made it very clear 5 years ago that I was no longer part of your lives. Mama, we made a mistake, Tia admitted, tears in her eyes. We were wrong to treat you that way. Wrong? I leaned forward. Tia, you didn't just make a mistake. You discarded me like I was garbage. You told me I was outdated, that I didn't understand the modern world, that I was a burden. We were stressed, Marcus tried to explain. We had financial problems, the house, the bills, Zoe's school. Financial problems? I couldn't help but laugh, no humor in it. The house I helped you buy? The bills I helped you pay for years? Zoe's school that I financed with my savings? They lowered their heads. Mama, that's why we're here, Tia said after a few seconds. We need your help. My help? I raised an eyebrow. Now suddenly you need the outdated woman's help. It's for the house, Marcus explained. The bank is going to foreclose if we don't pay $30,000 in arrears, $30,000. The same amount I had invested in my first hotel expansion. The same amount I donated to charity last month. And why do you think I would help you? I asked. Because you're our mother, Tia replied. Because despite everything, we're family. Family, I repeated. Interesting how that word appears now. Mama, please, Marcus pleaded. We don't know what else to do. I looked at them for several seconds. Then I pressed the intercom button. Evan, can you come in for a moment? My assistant entered. Evan, please prepare a check for $30,000 for my son and daughter. Yes, Miss Ryland. Marcus and Tia looked at me incredulously. Mama, thank you, Tia began. Don't thank me yet, I interrupted. This money comes with conditions. What conditions? Marcus asked nervously. First, this is not a gift. It's a loan. You'll pay it back with interest. Of course, Tia nodded quickly. Second, I continued, you'll never again treat me like you did 5 years ago. You'll respect me not because I have money, but because I'm your mother. We promise, Marcus said. And third, I added, you'll tell Zoe the truth. The whole truth about what you did to me. They looked at each other uncomfortably. Zoe doesn't need to know, Tia whispered. Zoe already knows, I replied. She's known for years. But she needs to hear it from you. After a long silence, they nodded. Evan returned with the check. I signed it and handed it to them. Mama, we don't know how to thank you, Marcus said. Don't thank me, I replied. Just prove that you've changed. They left my office with the check in hand, but I knew that money wouldn't solve the real problems. The real change would have to come from within them. 3 months after that meeting, things had begun to improve slowly. Marcus had started working at one of my hotels as a concierge, not because I gave him the job, but because he applied like any other candidate and proved he deserved it. Tia had begun volunteering at the orphanage I supported, perhaps trying to understand what it meant to give without expecting anything in return. But the real test came when Zoe told me her parents had finally confessed everything to her. Nana, they told me everything, Zoe said during one of our afternoon walks in the park near my penthouse. They told me how they treated you, how they kicked you out, how they underestimated you. And how do you feel about that? I asked gently. Angry, she admitted. But also sad for them. They missed out on knowing the incredible woman you are. My love, anger is normal, I replied. But don't let it consume you. I learned that the best revenge is to live well, to be happy, to build something beautiful despite the pain. And did you forgive them? She asked. Forgiveness is a process, I said. I'm working on it every day. That afternoon, as Zoe and I sat on a bench watching the sunset, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. I had built an empire, yes, but more importantly, I had rebuilt myself. I had learned that family isn't just blood, but respect, love, and mutual support. I had learned that it's never too late to start over, to dream big, to prove to the world and to yourself that you are capable of anything. 6 months after the graduation, my relationship with Marcus and Tia had evolved into something cautious but genuine. We had family dinners once a month, always at neutral locations, always with clear boundaries. Mama, Tia said during one of those dinners, I want you to know that therapy is helping me a lot. I'm understanding why I treated you that way. Why? I asked curiously. Fear, she admitted. Fear of growing old, fear of being like you, fear of not being enough. And now? Now I see that being like you is the best thing that could happen to me. You're strong, independent, successful. You're everything I aspire to be. Marcus nodded. And Mama, I've learned that being a man means defending what you love, not staying silent when someone hurts your family. I'm glad to hear that, I replied sincerely. But remember, words are easy. Actions are what count. After dinner, Zoe walked me to my car. Nana, do you think we'll ever be a normal family again? Normal? I smiled. My love, normal is overrated. But I think we can be a better family. A family that values each other, that respects each other, that supports each other without conditions. A year after the graduation, Ryland Resorts had 20 hotels operating nationwide. I had been invited to give a TED Talk about entrepreneurship in old age, and my story had inspired thousands of women around the world. But the most important thing happened during a quiet family dinner at my penthouse. For the first time in 6 years, we were all together under the same roof. Marcus, Tia, Zoe, and me. No tensions, no hidden agendas, just a family enjoying each other's company. Mama, Marcus said, raising his glass, to you. For teaching us the most important lesson of our lives. And what lesson is that? I asked. That love isn't measured in years, but in respect. That success isn't money, but dignity. And that a mother, no matter her age, is always the strongest force in the universe. We toasted, and for the first time in years I felt complete. Not because they had returned to my life, but because I had returned to my own life. Stronger, wiser, and unbreakable. Did you like my story on Real Life Story? If you listened till the end, drop a number 1 in the comments. If you enjoyed it, you can support Real Life Story by liking the video and sending a small tip. I've got lots of other life stories like this on Real Life Story, so make sure to subscribe and check them out. I've added 2 new stories on screen that everyone loves. Thanks for being here on Real Life Story. See you in the next one.